The story began in the prison of the Silver Dragon Dungeon, guarded by two formidable dragon sentinels. A silver dragon queen named Rose arrived, ordering the guards to leave as she wished to speak with the prisoner alone. Chained in the prison was the great dragon-slaying hero, who wore a sly smile. She asked him how it felt to be a prisoner of the Dragon Clan. His reply was simple: he wanted to die. Amused by his desire for a swift death, she approached him, touching his chin. It wasn't easy for her. He was both handsome and defiant. Slowly, she traced her sharp nail across his face, making a small cut and savoring the thought of adding more to mar his perfect features. He turned his head away, refusing to let her humiliate him any further. She could kill him or tear him apart if she wished. He only hoped she'd be quicker about it. Despite his great power, he had been betrayed by a villain, leaving him in this wretched state. The Dragon Queen licked the blood from his wound and suggested he join the Silver Dragon Clan. He mocked her questioning if she was worthy of such an ally. Infuriated, she lashed out, whipping him with her tail, causing his body to slam into the wall with a resounding crash. Standing over him, she placed her foot on his chest, incredulous that a mere prisoner would dare insult her. This was no ordinary man. His name was Leon Cosmo, once the celebrated hero of humanity, praised by thousands. But now he was broken and defeated. He could no longer believe in his former greatness. His dreams of wiping out the Dragon Clan and leaving behind a legacy for future generations had crumbled. The Dragon Queen sneered, telling him to accept his fate. He would die there. She pressed her foot harder into his chest, reminding him that any chance of a future filled with wealth and glory had vanished. Without an heir, he would leave nothing behind. Leon warned her not to underestimate humans. With a swift motion, the Dragon Queen wrapped her tail around his neck, thinking how stubborn he was. As she tightened her grip, she asked if he was ready to beg for mercy. But Leon remained calm, revealing that she had made two critical mistakes from the very beginning. First, he said, she should never have been alone with the most powerful dragon slayer, and second, she should never have tasted his blood. Suddenly, Leon activated a forbidden technique known as the blood curse. The Dragon Queen instantly released her hold on him, stepping back in shock. A strange sensation overwhelmed her. She collapsed to her knees, trembling, and to her horror, she felt an uncontrollable lust take over her body. Leon approached, his eyes cold and calculating. "You will live the rest of your life in pain," he declared, a torment that would gnaw at her soul. Her desire intensified, and before she could think, she lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. Leon, taken aback, couldn't comprehend what was happening. The Dragon Queen, consumed by the curse, kissed him, causing him to blush. For the next hour, they were locked in a bizarre and heated encounter. Finally, the blood curse began to fade, and with it, her control over her body returned. She quickly pulled away, confusion and anger in her eyes. "What have you done to me?" she demanded. Leon calmly explained that the blood curse was a forbidden technique, one that could only be used once in a lifetime. When she tasted his blood, it created a bond between their souls. Once he died, the curse would cause her endless suffering. The Dragon Queen scoffed, still trying to make sense of the situation. If this curse took effect after death, then why had this happened? Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Leon frowned, realizing that the curse had an unexpected side effect, one even he hadn't predicted. He admitted, "I thought the pain you'd feel upon my death would be the extent of it." Blushing, the Dragon Queen realized what this meant. Dragons were bound by strict codes of monogamy, and the bond created by the blood curse would doom her future. After Leon's death, she would be unable to take another mate or bear offspring, nor could she explain to the Dragon Clan what had happened. Leon was surprised by the unintended consequences of the spell. The irony wasn't lost on him. She had mocked him for not having a successor, but now neither would she. She launched into an attack, but Leon stopped her. "You don't need to do this. I'm going to die soon anyway." As his eyes began to close, he gave one final request: that the Dragon Queen live with hatred for him and feel pain for the rest of her life. This was his curse as a human, his parting revenge. The Dragon Queen hesitated, holding back from delivering the final blow. Moments later, Leon breathed his last. She couldn't believe it. This mere human had taken his revenge in such a despicable way. But she wasn't about to let him have the last word so easily. Using her power, she marked Leon's chest with the emblem of the silver dragon. Leon Cosmo had once been a legend, a hero revered by all. At the age of 5, he had killed a vicious dog with his bare hands, an act witnessed by a master dragon slayer passing by. Seeing potential in the boy, the slayer took him in as an apprentice. By the age of 10, Leon entered the prestigious Imperial Dragon Slayer Academy, and 4 years later, he graduated as the youngest and most highly evaluated student in its history. At just 15, Leon marched onto the battlefield, slaying dragons and reclaiming territory for the Empire. His name spread across the land as the strongest dragon slayer, the Empire's beacon of hope to end the war. That was until he was captured and enslaved by the Dragon Clan. 2 years had passed since that fateful day when Leon awoke with a scream. His hand instinctively flew to his chest, and gradually, his breathing slowed as he calmed down. Looking around, he found himself in an unfamiliar room. Confused, he wondered where he was when suddenly the door opened. A small girl entered, and Leon was struck by her innocence and beauty. He blinked, trying to understand what was happening. Rising from the bed, he gazed at the girl, her presence so pure that he thought she must be an angel. Surely, he had died and ascended to heaven after his immense service to humanity. But his assumption was wrong. "What's your name?" Leon asked, still in disbelief. The girl smiled sweetly and replied, "Muin." Though her response made him feel strangely happy, something about her was odd. Her hair, black and white, seemed unlike anything he'd ever seen. Muin mentioned that her mother told her the name meant the moon, which left Leon confused. Did angels even have mothers? Introducing himself, Leon was startled when the little girl excitedly responded that Leon meant lion. Surprised, he asked how she knew that. She smiled and said it was what her mother had told her. Feeling a sense of unease, Leon asked, "What's your mother's name?" "Rose Weiss," Muin replied cheerfully. Leon froze upon hearing the name, quickly piecing it together. Panic surged through him. How could this be possible? How could he have a child with Rose Weiss? Just then, Muin turned toward the door where her mother stood, sending a chill down Leon's spine. "Mama, Daddy's awake," Muin called out, running toward her. Rose Weiss's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't the one her daughter imagined. Muin assumed her mother was happy since she visited him every day, but as Rose stroked her daughter's head, she wore a wicked grin. "Go outside and play, dear," Rose said sweetly. "Your father and I need to talk." Once Muin left the room, Leon stared at Rose in disbelief. "Is Muin really our daughter?" he asked. "Yes," she confirmed, closing the door behind her with her tail. "She's our biological child." Leon's mind raced. "Why did you have the child?" he demanded. "Why did you save me?" Rose Weiss revealed that Leon had been asleep for 2 years. She hadn't forgotten what he'd done to her, and she wasn't going to let it go. Leon's anger flared. "I hadn't meant for any of that to happen. We're different," he growled. "I would have never touched you if things had been different." Seeing the torment in his eyes, Rose Weiss's expression darkened. "Oh, it was torture for you, was it?" she retorted. She wrapped her tail around his leg, yanking him onto the bed. Climbing on top of him, she tore his shirt open. With a cold gleam in her eyes, she activated a spell. She was going to carve her own dragon mark into him, binding him to her forever. Even though Leon begged her not to, Rose Weiss touched his chest, and a glowing magic circle appeared. This mark was to become his eternal shame. From that moment on, he would be her prisoner, bound to her forever, unable to leave. When his companions saw the dragon tattoo on his body, they would believe he had betrayed them and surrendered to the Dragon Clan. Leon still couldn't understand why she was doing this. Revenge among the dragon race was a mystery that had baffled human scientists for years. Their vengeance was not just extreme. It was an inhuman, paranoid obsession beyond human comprehension. For the Dragon Queen, it wasn't enough to defeat him. She wanted him to live in shame and suffer humiliation for the rest of his life. Word spread quickly that the Dragon Queen's husband had finally awakened. Even the maids noticed that the queen was in an unusually good mood. Leon, overhearing this from a hidden corner, was shocked. She had publicly declared him her husband. No one knew just how terrifying she truly was. She had spent the entire day and night with him, and poor Leon's body was nearly broken. His waist felt as if it had been shattered. Furious, Leon swore he would not stay there to be her plaything. Stealthily, he slipped out of his room and made his way to the side door of the castle, but 4 dragon guards stood watch. Escape seemed impossible. The castle was eerily quiet, with far fewer guards than there had been 2 years ago. Something felt strange about all of this. While Leon was figuring out how to avoid the guards, he stumbled upon a hidden hole in the grass. Silently, he approached it and saw a faint light coming from the other side. Unsure if it was a trap, he decided not to dwell on it. He had to escape no matter what. Even if it was a trap, he would force his way through without hesitation. Leon began crawling through the narrow tunnel, muttering a sarcastic farewell to the perverted dragon queen. As for little Muin, though she was adorable, she would have to stay behind for now. Meanwhile, on the balcony, Muin ran to her mother, excitedly announcing, "Father is digging a hole." The dragon queen, lounging in a bikini and sipping wine, chuckled at Leon's audacity. Muin eagerly asked, "When are you going to fish him back?" Rose Weiss scolded her gently, saying that fish was too rude, and corrected her with a smirk, saying to catch him back instead. Muin, a bit confused, nodded and agreed. As night fell, Leon finally managed to escape the castle and darted into the nearby forest. He knew that if he could climb the mountains ahead, he'd be able to see the border of human territory. After running for hours, Leon felt confident that the Dragon Queen wouldn't be able to catch up to him. But to his dismay, the sky suddenly darkened, and the Dragon Queen, now in her true dragon form, appeared above him, praising him for being such a fast runner. Seeing her, Leon cursed his luck and bolted, but Rose Weiss quickly landed in front of him, blocking his path. To his surprise, she wasn't angry. In fact, she seemed quite pleased. "Impressive, Leon," she said with a wicked smile. "I was the one who distracted the guards for you, and I left that little hole for you to find." Although Leon knew it was a trap, he had no other choice. He hadn't expected her to catch up with him so quickly. Returning to human territory now marked with the Dragon Queen's seal on his chest, no one would recognize him as a dragon slayer. But Leon didn't care anymore. He was determined to start over as an ordinary man, believing it was far better than being tortured by her. Seeing his defiance, the Dragon Queen spread her wings. Furious that he didn't appreciate her kindness, she grabbed him with her claw, and together they soared toward human territory. After 3 hours of flight, night fell, and the Dragon Queen released Leon near the border city of the Empire, sending him tumbling through the trees before crashing headfirst onto the ground. Dazed, Leon's headache vanished when he realized he was close to a human village. The Dragon Queen, now in her human form, confirmed they were indeed within the human empire's borders. For most, the sight of a familiar city brought hope, just one step away from returning to the human world. But for Leon, that hope felt unreachable. Suddenly, the mark on his chest began to glow. The Dragon Queen had neglected to mention an important detail. When one of the two bearers of the dragon mark desired intimacy, the mark would compel the other. As she touched his chest, Leon felt an overwhelming heat and desire surging through him, impossible to resist. She had brought him here to demonstrate his shame, forcing him to confront it in front of his homeland. But Leon wasn't about to give up. Grabbing her arm, he decided to bide his time. He swore to repay her double for every humiliation she had inflicted on him. The Dragon Queen, surprised but amused, smiled and agreed to his challenge, saying she would wait for him, dead or alive. As the moon rose, the two of them moved to a tree near the border city of the Empire. Their twisted fate was bound by the mark and their rivalry. They had been clashing for several hours, leaving the Dragon Queen more than satisfied. Meanwhile, poor Leon was exhausted and quietly crying, drained of both energy and pride. As she touched his chest, she casually decided that from now on, she would bring him back every month to his hometown for more sessions. Lost in her own thoughts, she fantasized about how to further wear down poor Leon. Satisfied for the moment, the Dragon Queen declared it was time to leave. After all, their daughter was waiting at home. But Leon, his spirit still somewhat intact, stopped her. He refused to be dragged back as her prey. As a dragon slayer, he would walk on his own, with what little dignity he had left. She raised an eyebrow, explaining that it would take 3 hours to fly back to the Silver Dragon Castle at her speed, while it would take a human like Leon 10 days, maybe even half a month, to walk. Despite this, Leon stubbornly insisted on going on foot, asking her not to underestimate human endurance. Amused, the Dragon Queen smiled, intrigued to see how long he could hold out. After a while, Leon's steps became slower, his exhaustion clear. She silently followed him, waiting for him to admit he was too tired so she could scoop him up and fly. But Leon, though on the verge of collapsing, refused to admit defeat. Mocking him, she teased, "The only tough thing about you is your mouth." Just then, they spotted several knights from the Dragon Slayer army patrolling nearby. Leon's heart leaped with hope. These men could help him escape her grasp. But the Dragon Queen quickly sensed his thoughts, her aura turning deadly. She warned him with her eyes that if he called for help, she wouldn't hesitate to kill him. One of the knights approached, noticing their presence. "Are you lost?" he asked politely. Lion quickly lied, stating that they were simply out for a walk. Deep down, he couldn't bear to involve innocence in his twisted situation. The knight, dismounting from his horse, introduced himself as the captain of the 47th Squadron of the Imperial Dragon Slayers. He pointed out that this jungle wasn't the safest place for a casual stroll due to the dangerous wildlife and species that roamed it. He kindly offered to escort them. Leon panicked, his hands shaking as he quickly thanked the captain for his kindness, insisting that they had learned some self-defense techniques and could handle themselves. In truth, he didn't want the captain to come any closer. The captain seemed to recognize Leon's face, which put the Dragon Queen on high alert. Her eyes narrowed, and she subtly began to channel her power, preparing to eliminate the captain if necessary. Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, Lion acted fast. He grabbed the Dragon Queen's hand and pulled her close to his chest, telling the captain with a nervous smile that he had been mistaken for someone else. He joked that he had such a common face that even his wife sometimes mistook him for someone else. Leaning in, Leon whispered desperately in her ear, begging her to play along. He promised that if she helped him get rid of the knights, he would obediently return with her. Amused, the Dragon Queen decided to humor him. They both began to put on a convincing display of affection, with Leon holding her close in a mocked display of love. The captain, clearly uncomfortable with the sudden outpouring of affection, smiled awkwardly and excused himself, no longer interested in disturbing their romantic moment. As soon as the knights were out of sight, Leon released the Dragon Queen, who was visibly irritated. Realizing his mistake, he quickly stepped back. "You were smart not to ask for help," she remarked coldly. "But let's get one thing straight. Just because we have a child together, that doesn't make me your wife." Leon, still catching his breath, responded that he never intended to be her husband. The Dragon Queen smirked, satisfied with his answer, and turned to leave, reminding him that they had a long journey ahead. But before they could set off, Leon suddenly felt a sharp pain in his hand, and moments later, he collapsed unconscious. Seeing this, the Dragon Queen sighed, amused by how fragile humans could be. Without hesitation, she transformed into her dragon form, gently picked Leon up in her mouth, and tossed him onto her back. Taking his collapse as a silent plea for mercy, she spread her wings and flew toward the Silver Dragon Castle, pleased with how things had turned out. The next day at Silver Dragon Castle, Leon woke up to find little Muin sitting beside his bed. Confused, he wondered how he had ended up back at the castle. Muin cheerfully explained that her mom had brought him back. It didn't take long for Leon to realize that he had finally been captured like prey. Glancing at his hand, he noticed it was bandaged with a neat little bow tied around it. Muin proudly took his hand, explaining that she had done the bandaging herself, clearly hoping for praise. Leon smiled and gently stroked her head, realizing how different she was from what the dragonologists had said about her kind. Dragons were supposed to be fierce, raised in violence and blood from childhood. Yet despite her dragon traits, Muin showed no hostility. She treated him with the warmth of a daughter, leaving him to wonder if this was because she was a human-dragon hybrid. He patted her head affectionately, telling her, "Muin, you're very cute," he said with a smile. Then he added teasingly, "But when you grow up, don't be like your mother." From the doorway, the Dragon Queen's voice cut in, "And what's wrong with being like me?" Leon froze, startled, realizing she had overheard him. Nervously, he tried to change the subject. Meanwhile, Muin eagerly showed her mother the bandaged hand, explaining that she had followed her mom's instructions perfectly. The Dragon Queen remained cold, giving no praise. "That's what you should do," she replied coolly. Muin simply nodded in understanding, used to her mother's strictness. Trying to lighten the mood, Leon suggested to Muin, "Why don't you go hide in the garden? I'll count to 100, and then I'll come find you." Muin's eyes lit up with excitement at the thought of playing hide and seek as she ran off to hide. Leon glanced at the Dragon Queen, muttering to himself that he was definitely not like her mother. He then began to count as Muin disappeared into the garden. Once Muin left the room, Leon turned to the Dragon Queen and asked why she was being so hard on her. Sitting on the bed, she explained that all dragons were strict with their children from a young age to cultivate strong warriors. Leon countered that Muin was not entirely a dragon and besides, she was very cute. The Dragon Queen scoffed, stating that Muin was indeed a dragon, and that cute was a derogatory term for one of her kind. Leon thought the Dragon Queen was also quite cute, but his comment only fueled her fury. In a swift motion, she grabbed him by the shirt, reminding him that he was just a slave for her to vent her anger on and was not allowed to outshine her. Leon understood her position, noting that her mood seemed to lift slightly. After all, she was the Dragon Queen of the Silver Dragon clan, burdened with many governmental matters. As a result, she entrusted him with the responsibility of taking care of Muin. Leaning in close, she whispered in his ear that Muin liked him. Feeling overwhelmed, Leon made his way to the fountain, wishing he could escape the responsibility of caring for children, especially as a dragon slayer. Suddenly, he spotted Muin hiding behind a pillar, clearly underestimating his ability to find her. Pointing at her, he declared, "I found you," but she remained still, prompting him to question whether she was upset. Apologizing for making her wait, he was taken aback when she suddenly took off running. Leon chased after her, asking, "Why are you running?" Muin turned a corner, causing Leon to lose sight of her. Predicting the mood of a child was quite difficult. He no longer doubted why the Dragon Queen had entrusted him with the task of caring for the little one. Just as he was starting to worry, Muin appeared behind him and wrapped him in a hug, leaving him surprised. Confused, he recalled that she had just run past him, but Muin insisted otherwise, explaining that since her dad hadn't found her, she had gone out to look for him. Though still bewildered, Muin took him by the hand, urging him to follow her, as she had something special to show him. Just then, another girl resembling Muin emerged from behind her and watched them in silence. That day, once the fountains were turned on, little Muin began to shake her head excitedly. She was painting some drawings and having the time of her life. Leon, sitting behind her, couldn't help but smile at the sight, feeling a wave of tenderness. Having a daughter felt good. For the first time, it seemed his soul had begun to heal. While Muin enjoyed herself, Leon clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, deciding it was time to escape the Dragon Queen's grasp. Just then, Muin ran toward him, eager to show him a family drawing she had made. Leon extended his hand with a cheerful smile, ready to praise her, but as he examined the drawing, shock washed over him. Muin had depicted two girls, initially thinking it was a mistake due to her age. He pointed to the other child in the drawing and asked, "Why are there two children?" With a tender smile, Muin replied, "The other child is my older sister." Upon hearing that Muin had an older sister, Leon panicked. It didn't take long for him to realize that the girl he had seen earlier was not an illusion. The child he had spotted in the garden must be Min's older sister. He regretted not calling her by name, which had likely caused her to feel upset. However, Mun reassured him that her sister wasn't angry, she was simply a little shy at seeing their dad. Lon rested his hand under his chin, reflecting on the fact that he had never met her before. It made sense that they were unfamiliar with each other. Today was a splendid day, and Leon couldn't shake the feeling that it was all the Dragon Queen's fault for hiding this information from him. He resolved to find her and demand some clarity. Meanwhile, in the Silver Dragon Castle, the Dragon Queen had gone to the library. As she read through some letters, a little messenger dragon arrived with a new message. Just then, the sound of footsteps approaching the library caught her attention. She and the little dragon watched the door intently, and moments later Leon burst in, clearly furious. He called for her attention as she tucked the letter back into its envelope. With a calm demeanor, she asked him what he wanted. Leon stepped up to the table and explained that he had been playing with Muin and discovered that she had an older sister. He pressed her about when she planned to inform him of this other daughter. The Dragon Queen smiled, somewhat puzzled by his confusion at the revelation. Lon slammed his hand on the table with determination, thanking the Dragon Queen for her hard work. He hadn't expected her to have two children, and it was clear she had put in a tremendous effort. He resolved that when he returned to the Empire one day, he would add her name to his family tree. The Dragon Queen remained calm, a smile gracing her lips, as she asked him if he understood why she hadn't mentioned her older daughter before. Lion speculated that she might be jealous of his closeness with Muin, fearing that Noah would come to see him. The Dragon Queen was somewhat taken aback by his eagerness to meet Noah. Unlike her cold and stern mother, Leon wanted to nurture a good relationship with his daughter. With a soft smile, the Dragon Queen decided to grant Leon's wish but warned him to consider his choice carefully as the hours passed and darkness began to settle. Leon headed to the kitchen, a smile stretching across his face as he started cutting some carrots. Today he was determined to show the Dragon Queen how things should be done. His first step in approaching his eldest daughter was to whet her appetite with a delicious meal. He set to work preparing a hearty meat stew with cream, a dish he often made during his time with the team. Everyone who had tried it claimed it was exceptional, and the sweet flavor was perfect for children. Using a spoon, Leon sampled the stew, savoring its rich taste. He hadn't forgotten how to cook, and as he clenched his fist in determination, he imagined Noah's smile as she declared that she loved the dishes her dad made. He believed that with this flavorful meal he could win her over. As he stirred the pot, two maids watched him curiously through the window. One of them couldn't help but feel excited. Leon had just recovered from a serious illness, and for the sake of his family, he had taken it upon himself to cook. To the maids, Lion was the epitome. Just then, the Dragon Queen and her two daughters entered the kitchen, with Muin eagerly greeting the maid. The Dragon Queen, wanting to create a more relaxed atmosphere for dinner, ordered the maids to take a break. They bowed their heads respectfully and replied, "Understood." As Leon prepared the food and set it on the table, he carried the steaming stew just as the Dragon Queen entered the dining area. Little Muin rushed toward him, drawn by the delicious aroma wafting through the air. With a smile, Leon said, "I heard you both enjoy meat, so I made a special stew and fillet just for you." He hoped that this meal would convey his affection to Noah. To his surprise, Noah seemed indifferent to the feast before her, her gaze wandering elsewhere. Leon was left in shock, confused by her lack of interest. The Dragon Queen smiled knowingly, and in that moment, Leon's frustration flared. He realized that the Dragon Queen had anticipated this reaction, which explained why she had been reluctant for him to meet Noah. It was their first meeting, and the Dragon Queen prompted Noah to introduce herself. Obediently, Noah replied, "I am Noah, the eldest daughter of the Silver Dragon Queen," proudly noting that she was 1 year and 2 months old. Dragons were a long-lived race, and young dragons matured much faster than human children. Leon approached her, extending his hand in greeting. "I'm your dad," he introduced himself, hoping to make a good impression. To his surprise, Noah seemed mesmerized by him, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that her indifference was unsettling. He wondered why she appeared so distant and whether she harbored any resentment toward him. Noticing the awkward tension, Muin gently took Noah by the arm and whispered, urging her to engage in conversation so their dad wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But Noah's response stung Leon. She remarked, "He seems very weak, and I'm not sure he's really our dad." Those words hit Leon like arrows, forcing him to confront the reality of his situation. It quickly became clear that he was facing the first crisis in his new role as Papa. Leon wiped his face with a cloth, reflecting on the harshness of the situation, convinced that his daughter might actually be trying to challenge him. Despite the difficulties, he steeled himself for what lay ahead. Noah firmly rejected something, her determined expression revealing her unwavering resolve. Whatever she was saying no to, it was clear she was standing her ground with conviction. The family sat around a table in an elegant dining room, the atmosphere tense as they exchanged subtle glances. Muin quietly sought help, while the twins sat side by side, their similarities apparent yet their contrasting personalities evident even in this quiet moment. Noah ate attentively, while Muin engaged in conversation. Leon looked warmly at Noah, asking if she was enjoying the meal, his tone filled with care and curiosity. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere was shattered as Noah cried out, and Leon, sitting at the table, reeled in shock from the unexpected outburst. Watching the scene unfold, the Dragon Queen covered her mouth in amusement, clearly entertained by the chaos. Muin, noticing her mother's laughter and joy, curiously asked why she was so happy. Leon joined in, laughing along with the others and expressing how being surrounded by family filled him with joy. Muin excitedly asked if their father would join them for dinner every day, her face glowing with hope. But Noah, with a serious expression, quickly rejected the idea, making her stance clear. Puzzled, Muin asked why her sister didn't want them to eat together daily, struggling to understand her reasoning. Their mother calmly questioned the urgency of joining a prestigious academy designed for dragons, wondering why her daughter was in such a rush. With confidence, Noah declared her desire to defeat even more dragon subordinates, her determination shining through. Meanwhile, Leon, wiping his face in disbelief, began to realize that she might even be planning to surpass him someday. Gently, He warned her about the dangers of battling fierce dragons, worried for her safety given her young age. Annoyed, Noah crossed her arms and insisted she was not a child, much to her father's exasperation. The Dragon Queen agreed with her daughter's eagerness to start learning early, believing it would better prepare her to face dragon subordinates in the future. Turning to Leon, she asked if he had a specific reason for wanting to prevent their daughter's education, subtly challenging his concerns. Leon contemplated in frustration, realizing that if he continued to oppose her ambitions, his daughter would only grow more determined to challenge him. Finally, with a resigned sigh, he dismissed his concerns and decided to remain silent for now. Reluctantly, Leon acknowledged that he understood the situation, though he was visibly frustrated. In his mind, he envisioned the Dragon Queen using the dinner setting as a psychological game, aiming to mentally overwhelm him. With a smirk, the Dragon Queen warned Leon to be cautious, as decisions about their daughter's future were made swiftly, leaving him visibly stressed. Noah was informed that the Academy's entrance exam was in a month and that her father would help her prepare during this time, to which she enthusiastically agreed. As the family dinner concluded, they playfully talked about how full they were, teasing each other. Lightheartedly, Ruiz turned, calling out in a serious tone that caught the attention of someone nearby. Leon gestured to the table, pointing out that the dishes hadn't been cleared, expecting some action. Ruiz calmly replied that such tasks were best left to others, subtly dismissing his concern. Leon suggested that a proper family dinner should end with both husband and wife cleaning up together. He hinted at whether Ruiz truly wanted to uphold a harmonious family image for the children or if it was merely for show. The child eagerly awaited the elder's approval, her excitement unmistakable as Ruiz reluctantly agreed with a calm expression. The child, brimming with enthusiasm, declared her desire to help, her energy contagious as she eagerly reached out, determined to be part of the action. Suddenly, Noah found herself being pulled along in confusion, struggling to keep up with her sister's quick pace. The scene then shifted to a quiet kitchen, where dishes were left in the sink. Rose finished washing the dishes and asked Leon, "When are you planning to help me?" Leon, arms crossed, replied, "Did you forget what I said 2 years ago? You made the same mistake, staying alone in a room with a highly trained and strong dragon slayer." Suddenly, the dragon pattern on Rose's chest began to glow. She glared at Leon. "What are you planning, Leon?" she asked. He smiled and said, "When I woke up 2 years ago, you played with me when I had no strength left. But now, it's different." Rose attacked him with her tail, shouting, "You can't escape from here." Leon blocked it with his hand, grabbing her tail firmly. "Who said I was going to run away?" he replied. Rose felt a wave of heat. Leon was holding her tail, her most sensitive part as a dragon. She couldn't stand it and collapsed, her face red with embarrassment. Leon smirked. "What's wrong? Aren't you the Dragon Queen? Did that dragon pattern make your tail even more sensitive than usual? Looks like you're weak and powerless now. I found this secret of yours in a book," he added. Then he leaned close and whispered, "You dragons want to conquer the world and everything in it? But tell me, have you ever been conquered?" Rose looked at him, shocked. A few minutes passed. Rose, breathing heavily, looked at Leon and said, "Let go of my tail." Leon, still holding it, replied, "You treated me like a toy when I was at my weakest. How about we switch the roles tonight?" Rose shouted in anger, "Leon!" But the maid outside heard the sounds. A few minutes later, the maid slowly opened the door. Their curiosity hinted at something unusual happening inside. Peeking into the kitchen, they were shocked to find it sparkling clean, as if someone had meticulously scrubbed every corner. The maid speculated whether the prince was responsible for the surprising tidiness. One of them, delighted by the spotless state of the kitchen, happily held up a polished plate. Meanwhile, Leon stood silently, observing the situation with a calm yet focused expression, holding Ruiz tightly. He warned her to stay quiet to avoid discovery by the maids, mocking her fall from grace as she found herself in a vulnerable position. The door to the room shut firmly, and Ruiz's eyes blazed with anger and determination, betraying her inner struggle against the humiliating circumstances. Leon smirked, tightening his grip on Ruiz as he mockingly called her his wife and suggested they get started. His expression shifted to a cold, determined gaze, showing his complete control over the moment. Ruiz's eyes filled with helplessness and exhaustion, but she barely responded, seeming resigned to her fate. 3 days later, the scene shifted to a bright, majestic castle standing tall under a clear blue sky. Two sisters stood by their father's bedside, worried as he hadn't woken up in 3 days. They wondered if he might be dead, but one of them calmly reassured the other to wait and see. Suddenly, Leon reacted as he was kicked in the face, groaning in pain from the unexpected hit. Noah, her foot still on his face, remarked that their father wasn't dead yet. Startled and somewhat hurt, Leon questioned if any child would treat their parent this way. As Leon regained awareness, he found himself in bed with Muin by his side, who eagerly reacted to his movement as if she had been waiting for this moment. With joy, Muin announced that he had regained consciousness while Noah sat nearby, observing in confusion. Leon wondered when he had even fainted as he slowly sat up in bed. Ruiz calmly offered to help Leon recall the events that led to his unconsciousness. A flashback revealed him being struck hard by Ruiz, and he remembered how the dragon mark on him became powerless after that night, triggering the painful moment when he was struck. Leon reflected on Rose's ruthlessness, realizing her overwhelming power could have easily ended him had he been any weaker. Still recovering, he sat quietly on the bed, watching Ruiz, who had turned her back to him. He noted her beauty despite her intimidating strength and recognized that she was a dragon over 200 years old. Muin, noticing her father's stillness, wondered why he wasn't moving, speculating that he was simply stunned by their mother's appearance, hinting at the awe she inspired. Suddenly, Ruiz was caught off guard as someone abruptly struck a nearby surface, drawing her attention. Her expression shifted in surprise as Leon reached down to pick up a flower accessory from the floor and gently placed it on Ruiz, stating that it suited her. Reacting with surprise at Leon's thoughtful gesture, Rose questioned if he had ever done something like this for other women. Leon chuckled and explained that as a child, he used to comb his master's donkey, claiming he had some skill in it. Muin looked up at Leon, innocently asking what a donkey was, catching him off guard. Smiling, Leon explained that donkeys were similar to dragons but much smaller, stubborn, and made humming sounds when unhappy. He then imitated a donkey's behavior, amusing Muin with his antics. Ruiz watched intently, not noticing the similarity between a donkey's stubbornness and her own personality. However, Leon suddenly recoiled in fear as Ruiz struck him, sending him reeling. Clutching his stomach and wincing in pain, he reassured Muin that he was fine when she asked if he was okay. Ruiz then assigned him the task of teaching the girls to write, declaring that Leon would handle it. Taken aback, Leon realized he had been volunteered without any say. Muin excitedly cheered that their father would teach them, while Noah confidently claimed she already knew how. The two girls raced off to the study room, eagerly discussing which colorful pens they wanted to use. Meanwhile, Ruiz informed Leon that her sister was coming to visit, and that she didn't want him appearing in front of her. Leon looked surprised and puzzled as to why he was being told to avoid the meeting, voicing his frustration about not being allowed to meet her family. Ruiz reminded him that he was now part of the Silver Dragon clan and had been in a coma for 2 years due to a mysterious illness. She explained that he had only recently woken up, emphasizing the complexity of his new situation. Ruiz warned him that if he were ever forced to meet her sister, he must stick to the false identity she had crafted for him. She emphasized the importance of maintaining the story, and Leon listened intently, still processing the situation. With a serious expression, he acknowledged her instructions respectfully. After Ruiz left, Leon questioned whether he would truly follow her orders, standing alone as he began to plot ways to embarrass her in front of her sister. The scene shifted to the children's study room in Silver Dragon Castle, where Leon sat at a table teaching Noah and Muin to write their names. He demonstrated patiently, guiding them step by step as they watched attentively. After writing their names as examples, he asked them to practice by copying his writing. Muin looked excited, while Noah's expression remained more serious as she studied Leon's writing. Noah commented that it wasn't as good as her mother's, hinting at her high expectations. Leon felt a twinge of frustration at the comparison, sensing the pressure to meet her standards. When Leon stood to leave, Muin curiously asked what he was planning. He replied that he had forgotten to deliver something to their mother and assured them he would check on their progress later. However, his carefree attitude left Noah doubting his seriousness, leading her to tease her sister for seeming happy, which Noah sternly denied, insisting they focus and practice as instructed. She looked down with a soft blush, momentarily thoughtful. The scene transitioned to the grand gates of Silver Dragon Castle, where soldiers and prominent figures gathered for a formal event. The Red Dragon Queen stood confidently, her striking red hair and royal attire making a powerful impression. Ruiz rushed to embrace her sister, their close bond evident in the warm reunion. The atmosphere was filled with warmth as Aisha and Ruiz joyfully greeted each other after a long time apart. Mky complimented her sister, noting how vibrant she looked since their last meeting. Ruiz seemed a bit taken aback by the compliment, modestly disagreeing. Curiously, Isa inquired about Ruiz's husband, having heard that he had finally woken up. She wondered aloud why she hadn't been allowed to see him yet. Ruiz explained that her husband was unwell and could not meet with Isa at the moment. Disappointed, Isa admitted she was eager to see what the Dragon King who had kidnapped her sister looked like. With a teasing tone, she hinted at the dynamics of Ruiz's relationship, suggesting that their quick marriage and child implied a strong bond. Ruiz became defensive, firmly rejecting the notion that marriage and children necessarily signified a good relationship. She denied any attraction to her husband, both in the past and for the future. Aisha smirked, commenting on her sister's toughness and recognizing that her strong personality remained unchanged. Cheerfully, Ruiz suggested they take a walk in the garden to chat, showcasing their strong bond. Aisha agreed, allowing her sister to lead the way. The sisters strolled together, smiling and enjoying each other's company. Meanwhile, Leon observed the two sisters from a distance through a telescope, recognizing Ruiz's sister. He watched intently, gathering information as he studied them from afar, determined to test the range of the dragon pattern. He sought to discover how far its power could extend. As Aisha and Ruiz wandered through a beautiful garden filled with blooming roses, they discussed the recent instability within the dragon clan. They noted that the Red Flame Dragon King had been particularly active lately, raising concerns among them. Ruiz was taken aback when she heard the name Constantine mentioned in connection with the recent turmoil. She questioned her sister, recalling that Constantine had been missing for years. Isa speculated that he might be attempting to expand his territory, using the current chaos to his advantage. Suddenly, Ruiz reacted in shock, her body glowing with energy as something unexpected occurred. Her eyes widened as she sensed something unusual happening around her. Noticing the change in her sister's demeanor, Aisha asked what was wrong. Ruiz quickly brushed it off with a smile, assuring her sister that nothing was amiss and encouraging her to continue speaking. However, Ruiz couldn't help but think about the Dragon Slayer, reminiscing about past incidents. In her thoughts, she muttered a frustrated remark about Leon, referring to him as a damn Dragon Slayer, clearly irritated by his actions. Isa grew serious and advised that they strengthen the border defenses. She mentioned sending someone named Shin Long to keep in touch in case there were any new developments. Ruiz sensed something and became alert as she thought to herself. At that moment, Aisha noticed her change in demeanor and asked what was wrong. Ruiz tried to dismiss her concern, replying, "Nothing, sister, please continue." However, in her mind, she cursed someone, muttering, "Damn Dragon Slayer." Isa continued talking, stating that they needed to strengthen the border defenses and that she would send someone to contact her if there were any developments. Amused by the idea of the dragon pattern, Isa mentioned how young people were casually playing around with it. Meanwhile, Leon reclined comfortably in a chair, contemplating how long Ruiz could endure the effects of the dragon pattern. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Ruiz stormed into the room, clearly upset. She grabbed Leon by his collar, accusing him of deliberately activating the dragon pattern to embarrass her in front of her sister. Seeing Ruiz's anger, Leon quickly decided to play innocent and fool her. He looked affectionately at her, making a pitiful face as he gazed into her eyes. "Is it wrong for me to want you?" he asked. Ruiz was taken aback and let go of his collar, her face turning as red as a tomato at his unexpected words. To hide her reaction, she covered her face with her hand. Leon smiled to himself, thinking with surprise that his act seemed to be working. He wondered if, at the very least, she was disgusted with him now. Blushing, Ruiz turned away and called him shameless, reminding him that he was just a defeated prisoner who shouldn't be speaking such nonsense. She told him to put away his dirty thoughts. Leon remained silent, smiling calmly while Ruiz glanced at him with a flushed face, thinking she had come to confront him. So why did his words throw her off? She left with an angry blush, warning him that he had gotten lucky this time. But if he tried something like this again, she wouldn't let it slide. Leon, with a teasing look, thought to himself how terrified he was, amused that a single word could leave her so flustered. He reflected that the dragon pattern really was powerful. As he pondered, his face warmed, and he realized his heart beat faster whenever he thought of her. Composing himself, he muttered, "Cosmode, wake up, stop thinking about nonsense." He reminded himself that the kids were still waiting for him to return, but it was clear that he and Ruiz were beginning to feel something for each other, marking a new turn in the story. In the study room, Noah practiced writing diligently while Muin, slacking off, wondered aloud why Dad hadn't come back yet. Later that night at Silver Dragon Castle, Aisha waved goodbye to Ruiz, saying she would head out that night. Ruiz, waving back, reminded her sister to be careful on the road. Aisha then transformed into her red dragon form, playfully asking Ruiz to let her meet her husband next time. Ross Weiss agreed, promising that they would have more time to talk as Aisha, accompanied by her knights, flew back to her own castle. Watching her sister's departure with a pensive look, with a serious expression, Ross gritted her teeth, staring ahead with determination. She silently cursed the dragon slayer, thinking he still hadn't learned his lesson. Tonight, she decided, would be different. Meanwhile, Leon was on the other side of the castle, sneezing repeatedly, wondering if someone was talking about him. He settled down to read the story of the young dragon as a bedtime story for his daughters, Noah and Muin. As he read, the girls drifted off to sleep, looking absolutely adorable. Smiling, he quietly closed the book, gently tucking them in and whispering, "Don't catch a cold." Leon slowly exited the room, taking care not to disturb his sleeping daughters. Just as he shut the door, Ross suddenly slammed her hand against it with a loud thud, startling him. Her serious expression caught him off guard as she asked where he was planning to go. With an awkward look, Leon glanced at her and asked if her sister was gone. With a sly smile, he received Ross's reply that there were still things to settle that night. She grabbed his collar, dragging him forward with determination. Leon protested, but she pulled him along, ignoring his resistance. In the Silver Dragon Queen's bedroom, Leon placed a tub of hot water down with a loud clatter in front of her. "The hot water's ready," he said, looking at her with a hint of exasperation. "What do you need it for?" Ross stretched her legs out in front of Leon, looking at him with an air of superiority. "I'm exhausted from walking all day," she stated, commanding him to wash her feet. Leon stared at her, stunned, his expression shifting to serious disbelief as he took in her request. With a commanding look, Ross added, "Enough with the nonsense. Just do it. This is your punishment for today." Sighing in frustration, Leon removed her heels, thinking to himself that he was a dragon slayer, now reduced to being a foot-washing servant for a dragon. As he looked down at her feet, he couldn't help but wonder how many dragon slayers had fallen under them. Noticing him staring, Ross frowned, wondering what he was thinking. A blush crept onto her face as she began to suspect he might have a strange fascination. Before she could say anything, Leon grinned mischievously and plunged her feet into the hot water. "Down here," he said half-playfully. The water was scalding, and Ross immediately recoiled, her expression shocked. Kicking him under the chin, she shouted, "It's too hot, you fool." Her kick sent him flying back, and Leon hit the ground, coughing up blood. With a cold, piercing look, Ross stepped onto his chest, pinning him down. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" she asked icily, trying to get back at him. Leon, his defiance undiminished, gave her an arrogant smile. "Well, you're the one who demanded I wash your feet." Ross's cheeks flushed as she looked down at him, stating that it seemed he still hadn't learned his lesson. Slowly dragging her foot down his chest, her tone dropped to a mocking whisper. "I bet you never thought you'd end up beneath a dragon." As Ross pressed her foot down on his lower body, Leon felt a wave of conflicting emotions. His face flushed from her touch, and in a strained voice, he told her to stop. He was torn between the humiliation of the situation and an odd sense of comfort. Smirking with a touch of arrogance, Ross leaned in coolly. "I'm curious," she said. "Just how long can you endure this?" Leon, still flushed, glanced up at her defiantly, thinking that he wouldn't give in to the dragon's games. Steadying himself with a sudden move, he caught her leg and, as he stood, grinned confidently. "I've had pigs' trotters, cows' trotters, goats' trotters, but dragons' trotters? Now that's something new." Ross's eyes widened, her face turning red as she asked what he was doing. Without missing a beat, Leon playfully bit her leg, exclaiming, "Tonight's snack, raw dragon claws." As he bit her, Ross screamed angrily, threatening to kill him. The next morning, Moon and Noah woke up, Noah fully alert while Moon was still half asleep. When Ross entered the room, her leg wrapped in bandages, Moon noticed and asked, "Mom, why are you limping?" Ross brushed it off, replying that it was nothing. Meanwhile, Leon sported a bandage on his cheek, and Moon turned to him, asking, "Dad, why do you have bruises on your face?" Mirroring Ross's posture, Leon folded his arms and said it was nothing. Puzzled and curious, Moon placed her hands on her hips, staring at both Leon and Ross with a questioning expression. Suddenly, an idea popped into her head, and her face lit up with excitement. "You must have been playing some fun game without me," she exclaimed, raising her hand. "I want to play too." Noah, arms folded, watched her sister with a blank expression, silently observing the scene. Later, Leon and Ross walked in the garden outside the Silver Dragon Castle, both looking away from each other, lost in their own thoughts. One maid nudged another, pointing and saying, "Look, the queen and the prince are on a date." The blue-haired maid giggled, adding, "What a lovely couple they are." However, she then remarked that they seemed a bit distant. The other maid watched them contentedly. Ross and Leon continued walking in silence, the quiet between them stretching. Leon, watching Ross from behind, wondered how things had ended up this way. He recalled how she had earlier suggested they take a walk together, shocked when he had asked why he should walk with her. Ross had replied that it was his duty to keep up the appearance of family harmony for the sake of outsiders. In the garden, Leon glanced at Ross, sensing something unusual about her today. She wasn't typically this proactive, and he wondered what she might be planning. Meanwhile, Moon and Noah, hiding behind a nearby tree, observed their mom and dad. Moon muttered to herself that Dad was so clueless he couldn't even hold hands. Suddenly, an idea popped into Moon's mind. With determination and bright eyes, she clenched her tiny fists and declared that she was going to help them. Taken aback, Noah tried to stop her. "Wait, Moon," she called out, but Moon didn't listen. She jumped up and ran toward their parents. Noah called out again, telling her to leave them alone, but Moon, already in motion, ignored her words. As she neared, Moon called out to her parents. Hearing her voice, Leon and Ross Weiss turned, surprised to see her racing toward them. Leon asked why Moon had followed him, but before he could finish, Moon grabbed both his and Ross Weiss's hands, quickly linking them together. Both Leon and Ross Weiss were startled by her sudden action. With a cheerful smile, Moon said, "When you take a walk, you're supposed to hold hands." Then, with a quick spin, she ran back, exclaiming that she was going to play with her sister. Leon watched her leave, wondering where this child learned such things. Back at the tree, Noah pinched Moon's cheeks, scolding her for not listening. Tearfully, but cutely, Moon admitted she was wrong, promised not to do it again, and asked her sister to let go. Leon and Ross Weiss stood in silence, still holding hands, wearing blank, confused expressions. Blushing, Leon looked away and remarked that this was a bit unexpected, asking what he should do. Ross Weiss, also blushing, replied softly that it was okay. They could just hold hands for now. As they continued walking, Leon noted that Ross seemed unusually calm today, which made him feel a bit uneasy. Ross Weiss smirked, saying it seemed like she had finally tamed him, and now that they were getting along, he was the one feeling unsettled. While they chatted and strolled, Moon and Noah watched them from behind a tree, curious and observant. Leon glanced at Ross Weiss and reflected on how she had always presented herself as a dignified queen before others. Yet, he didn't expect her to be so flustered by something as simple as holding hands. He wondered if her strictness as a mother stemmed from not knowing how to connect with her children. Leon then brought up the way Moon and Noah addressed her, noting that they always called her mother in front of others. He gently suggested that the usual way of addressing parents was mom and dad. He pointed out that while Moon called him dad, she referred to Ross Weiss as mother, which might make her seem more distant to them. Ross Weiss looked away and, after a pause, asked if there was really that much of a difference between mother and mom. Leon, looking at her with a bright smile, suggested that there was indeed a difference and encouraged her to have the kids call her mom instead. He bet they would feel closer to her that way. Caught off guard by Leon's cheerfulness, Ross Weiss's face flushed red. After composing herself, she nodded and said she would try it next time. Surprised by her sudden enthusiasm, Leon asked why she was speeding up as they continued walking in the garden. Suddenly, Ross asked if Leon felt homesick. He raised an eyebrow and questioned why she was bringing it up since she wouldn't let him go back anyway. Ross Weiss admitted that she couldn't send him home but mentioned there was something that might help ease his homesickness a bit. Curious but silent, Leon followed her until they arrived at the castle's large warehouse doors. As they stood before it, he wondered aloud what it might be. Ross Weiss explained that it didn't have an official name. He could call it a warehouse, utility room, or whatever he liked. She unlocked the door with a key and led him inside. As he looked around, Leon exclaimed, "The dragon's treasure trove." Picking up a bracelet, he commented that if it were in the Empire, it could easily be worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins. Ross Weiss told him that the bracelet was a gift from her grandmother when she was a child and that besides the spoils of war, the room held items of personal significance for her. Leon glanced at her thoughtfully, remarking that he hadn't heard her speak much about her family aside from her sister. Ross Weiss explained that she had never met her parents and was raised along with her sister by their grandmother. Surprised, Leon shared that his own story was similar. He grew up in an orphanage, not knowing his parents until he was later adopted by his master and his wife. Leon looked at Ross Weiss and asked why she had brought him here. Opening a treasure chest, she replied that she had something that might temporarily help him forget his troubles. Leon, still confused, remained silent. When Ross Weiss opened the chest, Leon's eyes widened with surprise as he exclaimed, "It's the black gold armor." Leon smirked and asked if he hadn't always wanted to reclaim this armor. In disbelief, he asked if he was dreaming and if she was truly going to give it back to him. With a cunning smile and a dark glint in her eyes, Ross Weiss confirmed it. As Leon reached out and touched the chest plate of the black armor, a blue light began to glow. Shocked, he realized it was enchanted with a dragon mark. Internally, he thought, "Black gold armor, my faithful friend. How did you fall into her hands?" Still smirking, Ross Weiss told Leon he had finally fallen into her trap. Now furious, Leon clenched his teeth and glared at her. It seemed they were about to witness yet another heated encounter between Leon and Ross Weiss. And that was the end of the video. See you in the next chapter.